Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday, September 13th. Joined now by the Hall of Famer Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. Make sure you are giving him a follow for all sports content. Rick, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Looking forward to my trip up to Indianapolis this weekend for the game. Should be an interesting game. I watched IU on TV Friday night against Indiana State. I've been to both the Louisville games, so I'm interested to see how this shakes out.
Yeah, me too. Indiana has definitely has a chance in this game. Their defense has played well from the jump, so they've got that going for them. I am going to be curious to see how the secondary does against Jeff Brom and his offense, because I know that he is going to try to take advantage of that in any way that he can. And they have an offense that has been playing well and a quarterback that is a veteran. So that's going to be one side of it. And then, of course, Indiana's offense. They have a lot of weapons. That's one thing that they never not had. The receivers, they've got some good receivers. They've got Jalen Lucas, if he gets out in space, is just a dangerous guy. I know it was Indiana State, but he touched the ball twice and he gone. He's got a little burst of speed. They loosened up the offense. They got the receivers out in space, catching the ball as well as running. So it's going to be an interesting game. Do you think it should be a 10-point game? You've seen Louisville as much as anybody, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's a fair spread. I've looked at some of the computer power formulas, and they've got like 9 or 10. Louisville's offense has been good. It hasn't been great yet. Jack Plummer's played solid. I know that Jeff Brom has wanted him to be a little bit more assertive and decisive in throwing the ball. I think he's thrown a in both games. In fact, he had 2 the last game, although I threw one of them out because it was a Hail Mary pass on the last play of the second quarter. So his play hasn't been, elite. But the guy in Louisville that people don't talk about as much, who I think is a really good player, is Jawar Jordan, who's their running back. He's not the biggest, most imposing guy, but he plays like he thinks he is, and he's also capable of breaking off long runs. He had a long run that helped really them establish dominance in the Georgia Tech game, and he had a long run for a touchdown against Murray State. And if you don't tackle him, he's a dangerous guy. So they've got weapons. Defensively, Louisville's been very solid. They got a good secondary. They've got a really good pass rusher in Ashton Gelati. I think he's a sophomore defensive lineman. The linebackers aren't as good as they were last year. Last year they had really good linebackers, and they're in the NFL now. But they're a very solid team, and it'll take Indiana's best game or one of their better games to beat them.
There's no question about that. They did show some life on offense, getting the ball out, throwing the ball. Taven Jackson looked very comfortable. Of course, it was Indiana State. He wasn't getting pressured, and he's going to get pressured this week. That's going to be the difference. How does he perform under pressure? How does this line perform against a legit straight-up line? Although they did well against Ohio State, had some comments come back from Ohio State that were very positive about Indiana. So that has to be a confidence booster for them. This should be a good game at the very least.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Should be.
Indiana's not going into this game with a lot of worries.
Right. The 2 or 3 things that jumped out at me after watching Indiana against Indiana State. One is, even though Indiana State isn't very good, they're not even a good FCS team. To hold them under 100 yards, there have been past years when Indiana couldn't hold bad teams under 100 yards. So the defense did what it needed to do. It's hard to hold any team under 100 yards. Secondly, I agree. Jackson threw a nice ball. He showed great accuracy. My big concern, as you mentioned, is going to be how's he going to hold up when he's pressured. The fact that they didn't run some of those plays, and they didn't start him against Ohio State. Even tells me that they had concerns about that. And I'm not, Bill Belichick. I'm not Bill Walsh or any of those guys, but he looked like he needs to be a little bit faster making decisions and faster getting the ball out. He had plenty of time to sit back and think about what he wanted to do against Indiana State. He's not going to have that against Louisville. That'd be the second thing. And the third thing is, and this is the most important one, they got to get rid of the dumb penalties. You had two guys, I think Carpenter twice was called for ineligible receiver downfield on passing plays. You ran into the punter on what was it, back-to-back punts or 2 out of 3 punts? Can't be doing that. Did Lucas fumble a punt?
No, it was a run that he fumbled, and it was a scoop and score. That was the only score.
Didn't he drop the punt too? I thought he dropped the punt.
He muffed. He did muff a punt. He did muff a punt.
And he got, I mean, Indiana doesn't have the margin of error. You're going to have some mistakes in every game. You can't have that many mistakes. You just can't. And, they had that play on the punt where they tackled the Indiana State punter before he really had a chance to catch the ball. I mean, that was 3 bad special teams plays. And I've always said
of the 7 penalties, 6 were of them on special teams.
Yeah. When you're a team like Indiana, I mean, you can struggle on offense or defense because you're not going to have the dudes to play on the offensive line or the defensive line. You're going to be outmanned. But you should always be able to have good special teams, and you need to have good special teams because you can win close games with special teams. And they do have a really good punter. Evans is a weapon for Indiana. He certainly is. I'm not sure how good the kicking game is at this, the place kicking game, but they gotta get rid of those penalties, man. And the reason it's something that I mentioned is it seems like it's an issue that's lingered here for a couple of years. I saw some of that stuff last year.
Yeah, and that is just a sign of a team that is just not completely locked in on things. And special teams are something that Indiana has usually done well at because they have to, because that's something that they cannot afford to not be good at. Tom Allen goes to great lengths. He gives a scholarship to the long snapper. Nobody does that. And the kicker. So he tries to make sure the special teams are shored up. If that starts falling, that is a third of Indiana's game without question.
Yeah, and what you need to do, and what I worry about is, you only get 20 hours a week to practice. Do you not put enough time in on special teams? Do you not emphasize it enough? Well, when it starts hurting you with negative yardage and field position issues, and then you need to spend more time on it, and you need to straighten it out real quick. Louisville's got a solid punting game. Their place kicker's been tremendous. He made 4 reasonably tough kicks against Georgia Tech in that game, 4 for 4, and he's also the punter. They do a good job on special teams, so it's going to be a fun game. And then you got the whole backdrop of, Louisville saying Indiana's afraid to keep playing Louisville and all that kind of stuff. And this is IU's last chance to, this is a big game for Indiana. Indiana plays 9 conference games. Louisville plays 8. If you win the game, you're going to have to win, in addition to Akron, you're going to have to win 4 Big Ten games. So, if Indiana wins this game, to me, it should change the outlook among some fans about what this team is capable of doing. Because what's the last, good non-conference win they've had? I'm trying to think what it was. They didn't have one last year. I don't think they had one the year before. The year before was the COVID year. What's the last good non-conference win Indiana's had?
Are we going back to Missouri?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm trying to think, man. John, you got something?
Who did they beat when they were 8-4 the year they went to the Gator Bowl?
I don't know. Was it a Virginia or a Wake Forest or something? They beat
Virginia.
It could have been one of
Virginia
those.
Virginia was not a very good team, though, and they're still not. So there's that.
Okay,
that.
There's a great trivia question. When's the last time Indiana won a big non-conference game?
It may be Missouri. Back in the Nate Sudfeld days.
Okay.
Thinking back to that. But
you might be right.
But it should be fun. Now, and my next question is, I'm wondering how many fans are going to go. Lucas Oil holds 60,000 people. I'm thinking they'll be lucky if they get 40,000 people there. I don't know. Is Louisville going to bring 20,000?
I don't know about 20.
That's a lot of. That's a lot of.
I think for a noon game, it's a lot. Yeah, you're asking people to get up and, if they're going to tailgate, they're going to have to get up at 7 o'clock and get up there by 9 and tailgate and have a good time. I think they'll bring 15. I mean, I think they took like 6,000 or 7,000 to Atlanta on a Friday. So yeah, people are more excited about Louisville football than they've been. I actually was a little bit disappointed in Louisville's home opener crowd. It was over 45,000. I thought they'd be able to get to 50, but Brahm has, brought back the excitement in the program. I think they'll have 15,000 people up there.
Oh, I can't imagine how. I mean, I would think that Louisville is just a buzz. Getting one of their own back, it's just that in itself has to make them feel good. I'm sure that they want things like everybody. They want it now, but they also know that the future probably looks good. But the future does look good. They're in the ACC. The ACC is not exactly the strongest conference in football right now. Clemson obviously taking a hit. They've got a shot to do something in the conference this year.
Yeah, except the thing I'll say about that is the ACC is 4-1 against the SEC this year. Carolina beat South Carolina. Florida State beat LSU. Trying to think of the other ones. There was two other ones that have jumped out that I can't think of right off the top of my head. But they're Miami. Miami took care of Texas A&M. That was a big one, and Wake Forest beat Vanderbilt. So you're right, and it plays into the narrative of what Louisville has in the short term. After Indiana, next week they have Boston College at home. Boston College lost to Northern Illinois and was life and death to beat Holy Cross. So they got a chance to be 4-0. Then they go to NC State for a Friday night game. NC State just got blown out by Notre Dame. They could win that game. They're 5-0. And then if that happens, they're 5-0 and have Notre Dame come into town. And that would be a game of regional and perhaps even national interest if that happens. If you got Jeff Brom 5-0 going against Notre Dame and Dame is undefeated, this place will be sold out for that game, which the only other time Notre Dame's been here was 2019, and they had 59,000 people in the stadium.
Yeah. Well, Robert, I think there's going to be more than 20,000. I was just talking about on a side. I'm wondering how many. I think back to
how many fans is Indiana going to have? I mean,
that's my question, because it's an opportunity for people that don't go to IU games to go. It's close to Indianapolis. It makes it much easier. It's a lot closer to Fort Wayne. The people live up in Kokomo, whatever. So it gives an opportunity for people who may not normally go the opportunity to do that and to go see a college game, a good college game.
With a noon kickoff, you put the time squeeze on people of, getting up and then driving 2 hours to get there. So some people don't want to do that. I don't know. I'm curious. I think I'm going to guess the crowd's going to be in the low 30,000s. That's what I'm going to guess.
The total. Yeah. If they can get 40, that's what I said. If they can get 40, I think that they'll be lucky.
But how much buzz is there around IU football right now? I mean, I don't sense a ton of buzz.
Here's the answer to that for me every time. Look at the stands at halftime. After halftime. Okay.
I've got to say this too, I think, and I could be wrong on this. I think a lot of fans are waiting to see what happens in this game in particular to buy it.
I agree.
I think that's it.
I agree. That's why a huge game for Indiana. If you want to get people excited about the rest of the season, you got to win this game, because then you can beat Akron next week, and then you're 3-1. And what's the next one after that? Is it at Maryland?
It is.
Yeah, Maryland's pretty good.
And that's going to be a tough game.
But here's
road games are hard.
They are hard. But if you're Indiana, beating Maryland on the road shouldn't be a bridge too far. It shouldn't be. I'll give you beating Michigan and Penn State on the road. That's one thing. But you got to be able to stand in there and slug it out against Maryland. And when you're
Charlotte and Biff Poggi gave Maryland a fight for two quarters.
And you got to be able to. And I know that Rutgers looked good against Temple. You got to be able to beat Rutgers. You do. Yeah, I mean, there's some of the things that have happened so far, have helped create a narrative that Indiana can get to 6 wins. Michigan State although they're 2-0 with all the crap that's going on around their program, who knows which way that program's going to go. Purdue lost the home game to Fresno State. The Virginia Tech game is hard to evaluate. They did win the game, but when you have a 5-hour delay, but Purdue's not overwhelming. Illinois got clocked by Kansas. They're not nearly as good as people think they are. I mean, they're going to have opportunities to get to 6 wins.
And Wisconsin lost to Washington State as well.
Wisconsin lost the one. That's why when you play Wisconsin, you can't say, oh, it's so hard to beat Wisconsin. Oh, really? Washington State beat them 2 years in a row.